Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Hi, Bila.
Hello, how are you?
Actually,
Sure, Bila. Sure.
all right,
Are you
finish
still in
my
Cape Town?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm starting the meeting now in 1 minute of the COVID.
You will be in Cape Town today.
I'm flying to Joburg at 11.
At 11.
Yeah.
Now I'm flying to Cape Town. At 10:30.
We'll pass in the air.
Hey, this way, hey, I got them. The regular will become getting that. Ako konerin. Ako konerin.
Yeah, good morning to everyone on the platform, the staff of Parliament who have helped us to arrange this meeting today with our traditional leaders. We also want to greet our traditional leaders who are in the house, but also serving in CONTRALESA. We welcome the honorable members who are members of the Portfolio Committee on International Relations. Today, we are going to be dealing with two items, honorable members. It is a consultative meeting with CONTRALESA for us to brief them on our oversight model. We will also be getting from the Department of International Relations and Cooperation South Africa's participation in the G20 Summit, which was held in India, and thereafter we will close the meeting. It will be a very, very short meeting, honorable members and our leadership of the traditional leaders. Lubabalo, do we have apologies?
Good
morning, honorable members. We have two. One is from the minister. She's attending cabinet, and the other one is from Deputy Minister Marsha Kotlavini. She's attending cabinet committee meeting. Deputy Minister will be leading the department. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Lubabalo. Before we proceed with opening remarks on item 3, is it possible for you to indicate to us from the side of CONTRALESA who is here, Lubabalo?
It is we have Honorable Mkiva, who is the Secretary General of CONTRALESA and also a member of Parliament and the Chairperson. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Hello, Chairperson, I'm also Kushimalikan is linking, but my network is very bad. but I'm only joining this discussion. Thank you very much.
Okay. No, that's understandable, Khoshi. Really,
Chairperson Makhoshi Dikhali also is in attendance. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Maybe we should allow the Secretary General of CONTRALESA just to indicate who is here, because we are not very sure. Ndadem Kiva, my comrade, are you able to do that for us? Secretary General Ndadem Kiva? Ndadem Kiva? Luba, is it possible for you to give a call to Ndadem Kiva and just indicate to him that we will want him at least to introduce his delegation? Khoshi Malekane.
But then, sir. Okay, thank you. I'll do that.
Yeah. There's also somebody from Parliamentary Services whose mic is on. I don't know who is from the Parliamentary Services. If you can just switch off your mic. Lubabalo, are you able to check who is Parliamentary Services?
It is our parliamentary streaming services, Chair. I've muted their mic, Chairperson.
Okay. Did you get hold of Ndadem Kiva?
I'm speaking to his secretary, Chairperson.
Okay. In the meantime, honorable members and our leadership from CONTRALESA, I want to welcome you officially. Yes.
I am in the meeting. I've been here since the time this link was shared with us. So I'm on board.
Oh, okay. No, you're welcome, Secretary General. Ndadem Kiva, I just wanted you to just introduce your delegation to us before we start.
Let me, I see that we do have the Deputy Secretary General, Chief Aaron Meselar. I also saw earlier
Recording in progress.
Khoshi Malekane, who is the member of the National Working Committee, who is also the member of the NEC, as well as the convener of the Veterans League of CONTRALESA. I also saw Makhoshi Dikhale, who is the member of the National Executive Committee, but also he chairs the CONTRALESA business entities. There may be some of our members who have not really created their identity. So for now, I see that we are still 4 in the meeting, and I'm expecting that we should be 6 at least. So I don't know, Chairperson, if maybe you can give me just a minute or 2 before maybe you proceed with the meeting, so that I can just ensure that all our forces that are supposed to be here are here.
Thank you, Ndadem Kiva. What I will do, I will continue with the opening remarks. You are also going to do your opening remarks. So I will suggest that when you do your opening remarks, you will then indicate who is there.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. You can go ahead.
Thanks for your understanding. I want to take this opportunity, honorable members, to welcome you to this meeting and also welcome our esteemed leadership in the traditional leadership of our country. As you know, honorable members, in the 80s, there was an DERCO DG. If you can just mute your mic. Yes, I was saying, honorable members, that you'll remember that in the 80s, the struggle against apartheid had to be intensified. That was during the time when the president of the African National Congress, speaking on behalf of the ANC from Lusaka then, there was a call for South Africa to be rendered ungovernable. One of the structures that became a product of that call to intensify that struggle was the United Democratic Front. In 1987, then CONTRALESA was born as part of Africans here in South Africa, the African leadership in the form of traditional leaders, taking a decision to take a posture against the apartheid system. So CONTRALESA was then born, and it has been part of our struggle. CONTRALESA was part of the negotiations, and after the democratic dispensation in 1994, CONTRALESA continued to participate in the deepening of democracy in our country, the transformation, and providing a leadership in as far as particularly our areas of traditional leadership are concerned. We also know that one of the challenges that befell South Africa during colonization and apartheid, one of the atrocities that was imposed on our traditional leadership. The traditional leadership was responsible for the governance of the lives of Africans in South Africa, of Blacks in South Africa, before we had white people coming to this country. So that history where South Africa was governed by traditional leadership has not been erased. It can't be erased. The apartheid system tried to cause divisions among the traditional leadership. They tried, especially those who were progressive, to make them unpopular, to deal with them, to deal with their families and so on. But the apartheid system couldn't succeed. So today we have CONTRALESA still in existence. And we thought in Tatem Kiva and your team that it will be important for us as this Committee on International Relations of Parliament not to behave as if we don't know the history of this country, not to behave as if CONTRALESA doesn't exist. So we have requested you to have this short meeting with you to introduce what we think can assist our country going forward from a parliament point of view. We are responsible as the portfolio committee, like many other committees, to do three things which are in the Constitution of the Republic. One is to make sure that we hold the executive accountable. Two is to make sure that there is a development of laws, it's lawmaking. And three, we are supposed to ensure public participation. Now, CONTRALESA can help us a lot on the lack of public participation and lawmaking. So CONTRALESA can say to the portfolio committee, we think that the following laws either need to be amended or we need to introduce some laws as they relate to matters of international relations, because matters of traditional leadership in terms of the arrangement of the government, they fall under COCTA. But there's nothing that stops CONTRALESA or anyone in South Africa to say to the Portfolio Committee on International Relations, in as far as international relations matters are concerned, we would want to make the following proposals, not only on lawmaking. You can also discuss with us how you as CONTRALESA can work with DERCO and its 116 worldwide based embassies throughout the world who are doing work on behalf of South Africa. In the villages, we need a lot of investments in which I believe should be the development, the growth and sustainability of village economies. Ndadem Kiva, I'm one of the people who believe that South Africa will not go anywhere if we do not build strong village-based economies, because the cities and the townships are a product of villagism. All of us originate from villages. Our genesis is based on villages. So we cannot detach the villages from all aspects of life of South Africa. So if there are things that you would want to discuss, as I said, relating to the economy, relating to how you want to work with other traditional leadership-based system in the world, we are there to work with you, working with DERCO and of course, COCTA. But specifically here today, we want to bring to your attention the reality. This reality is the fact that in South Africa, there are a lot of foreign nationals who are here. Most of these foreign nationals are in the villages which are under the management, the control, and the governance also by the traditional leadership. Some of these foreign nationals have established businesses, others is legal businesses, others is illegal businesses. Some of them are here legally as foreign nationals, some of them are here illegally. When they are here over and above businesses, some of them get to marry our sisters, some of them get to have children with them. And you would know, as the custodians of our traditions and culture, that when children are born, there's some traditional procedures with regard to rituals and other things that we do as Africans, which must be performed. And we have not asked the question to say, under these new critical developments where you've got foreign nationals, legal and illegal, coming here, how do we deal with those issues? Matter number 2 relates to the businesses they are conducting in our villages. You would know as traditional leaders that in almost every village, there's tuck shops which are managed, run, and controlled by some of the foreign nationals. Some of the tuck shop, they supply our people with whatever they need, the basics in villages. Some of the tuck shops, which are owned by foreign nationals, it has now been proven, they are nests of drugs and all other wrong and illegal things which are against the laws of our republic. So as a portfolio committee, we took a decision that we must establish forums in all the villages throughout the country. We will also establish that through all the townships in the country. So when it comes to the villages, we thought it will be important for us to talk to you as CONTRALESA, so that we don't just start establishing those village-based forums on international relations without talking to our traditional leadership. We would want you as our traditional leadership to be part of those processes on the ground. We are going to have those forums discussing, among other things, the situation that every village faces in as far as the dynamics of foreign relations is concerned. We will work with them to make sure that through those forums, we deposit issues into DERCO, issues that are coming from the ground. Thirdly, we will use those forums in which our villagers will be participating to help the officers on the ground of the traditional leadership. We will also work with DERCO, ourselves and yourselves, through those forums to make sure that some of the progressive countries can assist the villagers, either in making sure that they develop their economies. We can bring investors together who are going to grow the economies of the villages. We can work together through those forums with our traditional leaders to make sure that the skills that are relevant, that may be coming from overseas, they go into the villages. We will work together with you and those forums and traditional leadership on the ground to make sure that our children who may want to go and study overseas, we can work with DERCO and other ambassadors who are here in South Africa representing other countries to make sure that they help our kids to go and study overseas. As I said, those who are in business who will want to either partner or want to have assistance from relevant legal foreign-based companies overseas to come and work in the villages, we can work together to achieve those things. But we can also work together on the ground with traditional leaders and those forums, working with the police and all other law enforcement agencies to make sure that we deal with criminality that is on the ground. If there are policies that we think needs to be suggested either to the ruling party or to the government, we can work together, and we will work together on the ground in every village to make sure that we realize these objectives. That forum on international relations in every village and township will also work with the councillors on the ground, because the councillors are the chairpersons of the ward committees throughout the country. There are also the PR councillors on the ground. We will be working together with all other parties, councillors, irrespective of which party you belong to, on the ground to deal with matters of foreign affairs and international relations. But we will also use those forums to educate our people on the ground about matters of international relations. So on a regular basis, we'll have those sessions where our people working together with our traditional leadership on the ground, we will be educating them about matters of international relations. For instance, as we speak now, there are matters of Palestine and Israel. There are no forums on the ground to teach our people about that conflict, its history, its genesis, where is it taking us to, where do we stand as South Africa, why we have the stance that we have. Our people on the ground in the villages where you lead as traditional leaders don't know our trading partners and the extent to which we do trade with them, the extent to which advantages coming out of that trade can flow to our villages. Our next item, for instance, just today, we are going to discuss G20, which was held in India, and the role that South Africa played there to deal with matters of economics, politics, and other matters. Our people on the ground, through those forums and working with you as our traditional leadership, our people will then begin to understand how structures such as G20, G7, BRICS, and all these other structures, how they as people on the ground can play a role having understood the role that those structures play, so that whatever comes out as resolutions, as declarations, as way forward, can then be explained to our people on the ground, so that our people must not just rely on television, which sometimes misleads them, or generally the media, which distorts some of the information. So we think having established these forums, our people will play a direct, meaningful role. As I said, not only in resolving conflict on the ground with matters of foreign nationals, but also dealing with enterprises, businesses, and many other things in the context of implementing the constitutional mandate of lawmaking, of oversight on the executive, and of public participation. In summary, that's why we have requested this meeting with you, Ntate Mkiva, and we hope that our traditional leadership over time will understand the critical importance of this approach that has been suggested and developed by the Portfolio Committee on International Relations. Over to you now, Ntate Mkiva, for you to do your opening remarks and introduction of your delegation, your comment, and thereafter we will ask members to comment, then we will close the meeting.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Supra Mahumapilo, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on International Relations and Cooperation. Chairperson, I greet you. I also greet the members of your Portfolio Committee. Let me start off by saying that the president of the Congress of Traditional Leaders, Kgoshi Tupa Mokoena, has delegated me to lead the delegation here today because Wednesdays are he is very busy on Wednesdays attending to matters of the province where he is the chairperson of the House of Traditional Leaders. And the Deputy President of CONTRALESA, Hosinyala Rapilane, has traveled to North Africa, where he has been delegated by CONTRALESA on a deputation to one of the countries in North Africa. So I am here today, and I am joined by the Treasurer General, Inkosana Charles Malinga. I am also joined by Kgoshi Ngwana Malekana, who is the convener of the veterans. I am joined by Makhoshi Dikhale, who chairs our business entity. I'm also joined by the Deputy General Secretary, Chief Aaron Meselar. The convener of the youth is also with us, Inkosana Ulutuga. So that completes our delegation here. We are taught that we should limit this to the senior members of the National Working Committee to be with us here today. Chairperson, I think on behalf of the national leadership of CONTRALESA, let us express our deep felt gratitude and humility to you first and foremost, as well as the members of your committee, for having taken this profound decision to reach out to us. This is a gesture that we do not take it for granted, Chair, because it is not only about the recognition of CONTRALESA and the role that CONTRALESA played in the liberation struggle, but this is the acknowledgement of the fact that the management of the national question will not happen efficiently and effectively in this country unless there's a centrality of the meaningful participation of the institution of traditional leadership as led by the motive force itself, CONTRALESA. I therefore, Chairperson, salute you, and how I wish that other committees of Parliament can come and benchmark on this exercise that you have taken. And I know, Chair, reading from your tone of your opening remarks, this is not just going to be a once-off installment, but it is going to be something that we have to continue doing going forward for all intents and purposes, to join hands to ensure that we enrich each other's approach and ensure that what we touch, it actually helps to transform our country and our society at large. Chairperson, the portfolio that you lead in our national parliament is one of the most important portfolios, which it needs to be given the acknowledgement and the space that it needs to play. But as you rightly put it, you don't want to walk that journey without bringing us on board. There has always been some impulses in the past which were done in a piecemeal fashion. And I believe that I believe that one of the things that we have done by coming up with this meeting is going to help us to solidify a working relationship that will ensure that from time to time we can do certain things together in a strategic way. I'll make one example, Honorable Supra. There used to be a situation where there are observer missions that are undertaken to countries that South Africa has interest on. Let's say if there are elections in Zimbabwe or DRC, we were always taken on board by DIRCO as part of the contingent of the South African observer mission, as an example. It used to happen until the recent past. We don't know why that stopped, because it was a very good exercise, because what it was doing, it was also empowering the institution of traditional leadership to play a role of oversight inside and outside. I'm saying inside the country because we also have elections here, national and provincial as well as local elections. It would be so great that that program can continue, so that when there are elections, even at a local level, provincial and national, the traditional leadership can play a particular role, which is part and parcel of overseeing and observing that election, so that it can itself give an account on the fairness of the process, but also to ensure that there's no wrongdoing and there's no foul play in terms of how an election is conducted. So going to observer missions outside the country helps, and it has actually helped us to develop a contingent of cadres who are now, having some kind of skill and expertise on what gets done when you are overseeing and observing an election. I'm making that example because you have hit the nail in the head when you are making your opening remarks. Secondly, Chair, you will know that out of the 116 missions that we have, some of those missions are located in countries that have royalty. Chairperson, it pains us as CONTRALESA that when a South African delegation of political leadership visit a particular country that has got something that resonates with the institution of traditional leadership, there's not even a single person that is invited on the part of CONTRALESA to be part of that delegation. Similarly, when royalty of those countries come to our shores, there is no audience that is created. And we think that it goes against the African values that a royal leader of another country comes to a country with royal leadership, but that particular leader does not get given an opportunity to interact with royalty locally. There should be some kind of courtesy, meet and greet and brief discussions among the visiting royals who come here. It can't be right that you roll red carpet and put all expensive cultural for visiting heads of state and visiting royals, but at home you are not recognizing your own and give them an opportunity to interact with those. Thirdly, Chairperson, like I say, we are a republic of a special type because we recognize and acknowledge the institution of traditional leadership, and that is embedded in our constitution. There's no question about it. Now, we have got kings here, Honorable Mahumapil. The kings are national leaders, they are national figures, they are national treasures. But something is very odd that the kings, the majority of them, I only know one who has a diplomatic passport, as an example. But it cannot be right that you have a national leader at that level not having a diplomatic passport. Of course, I have started a process of an engagement with DIRCO but it is a matter that is now 29 years late. It needs to be sorted out. It needs to be sorted out. I see that the Honorable Deputy Minister has also joined us. I did not recognize it. Deputy Minister, Honorable Alvin Bodes, I see that you are here. I greet you, my leader. So I was on the point of the diplomatic passports for the kings in particular. It's very critical that we look into that matter. Now, let me come now to the issues which are very key and strategic in terms of the development which we have touched on. We have always been very concerned that the issue of the foreign national also manifests in a great deal in our spaza shops, in our areas. So unfortunately, most of the powers that used to be held by traditional authorities and councils were taken away systematically through the systems and structural, act that governs the municipalities. We need to look into that question because we have now, for the first time in the new dispensation, a phenomenon of foreigners who are in our areas. They are not registered and they even run business. They sell food to those communities. And in other words, we eat food which is being sold to us and our people by people by people who are in the country illegally, and which poses a huge danger to our people. So we accept, therefore, the proposal. We welcome it. We think it is a very progressive proposal that we must work together and do everything we can side by side to arrest the threat that is before us. It is actually a national threat, Chairperson. We have seen videos circulating in the media where children are poisoned to a point where some children have actually passed away. As recently as 2 weeks ago, in schools in Queenstown, I think more than 50 children were hospitalized because they were fed, items which were actually poisonous. So it's an urgent matter, Comrade Sopra, that we need to take up as soon as possible. I also want to talk to the issue that you have spoken to, that relates to BRICS, African Union, Pan-African Parliament, IPU, as well as how we can tap into the bursaries and scholarship, which is both provided by DIRCO. But I want to touch on this matter through my experience having been delegated by CONTRALESA to interface with some of the diplomats. I have learned, Chairperson, that some countries like Russia, they offer scholarships to South Africans to go and study in Russia. But the process of ensuring that actually those offers are actually taken is really very bureaucratic, to a point wherein those scholarships are actually returned back to those countries unutilized. And it does not only manifest with Russia. There are many countries that are actually making these offers. I do not know how we can come together to process this, because what we were doing as CONTRALESA was to reach out to them to say, okay, we represent a particular constituency which talks mainly to rural and peri-urban areas. And therefore, in the mix of the selection, you must always take into account that we're a country with this kind of complexion, and therefore you must come up with a balanced approach when you do your selection. Unbeknown to us that actually there are no takers for these scholarships, and they sit in many of the embassies that are here in the country. And I think working together, we can ensure that we address that particular predicament. So, Chairperson, I think that on behalf of CONTRALESA, we are excited about this, and we are agreeable to your proposal of saying that in each and every community, there must be some kind of structure that must deal with the matters which are common in our villages and in our communities to deal with all of these things that affect us on a daily basis. It can be right that we are here, we are leadership, but we are on the side of those that are complaining about what manifests on the ground, and yet we call ourselves leadership. Let's correct this thing once and for all. And we want also laws to be made that certain types of businesses must actually be exclusively be under the stewardship of South Africans. You can't have a free for all. This is not an America. This is not a country that was created by Columbus. This country belongs to the natives. This country belongs to Africans. And this country is under the custodianship of the foundations of our society, which is the institution of traditional leadership. All we need is to be given our birthright and our authority as traditional leaders to ensure that we reinstate and restore the stability that used to be there. And that can only happen if the powers and functions which are given to traditional leaders are restored with immediate effect so that there is order. Now, drugs are also making, it's a free flow for them, even in villages. This thing is killing our children. These guys that come from outside, that are in the country illegally, are even selling these drugs at the gates of the schools. You can imagine now that they are messing up even toddlers, children who are still underage. So it's very, very bad, Chairperson. So I'm saying that we embrace this proposal and we're looking forward to working with you. And I want to say, before my colleagues come in, we might have to have a meeting, even if it's virtual for a start, wherein we can even invite all our provincial structures so that, because we did not know what we are going to say here in terms of the high-level political, statement that you made in your opening. So I see that, yes, we can take the message to our structures, but I think an opportunity where you make the same representation to the entire, perhaps, NEC, where all the secretaries and the chairpersons of the provinces will also be invited. We can even extend it to the regions. So just for you to know, Comrade Supra, that we have provincial executive committees in all the 9 provinces, and we have the regional executive committees in all the 44 districts in the country. And then we have got 882 traditional authorities. And over and above that, we've got units which go into more than 6,000 in the country. So in that way, when we bring in the PEC, especially the chairs and the secretaries, it will be helpful to expedite the process of this communique so that we can get to your ambition of ensuring that each and every community has a structure of some nature that talks to what you have presented to us. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Ndadem Kiva. Thank you very much for those important opening remarks on behalf of CONTRALESA. We have heard you very clearly. And some of the issues you have raised, we will take them up immediately in between. So this meeting was very helpful. For instance, as a committee, we were not aware that some of the kings and queens use ordinary passports. So we will take up that matter with the department. We will also agree with you that we must have a meeting where the regions and the provinces will be represented so that they can, on their own, be able to hear this perspective from the portfolio committee and the role that we would like them to play in this particular matter. We will also take up this matter of scholarships that are offered by different countries. I think what we will do is to, together with DERCO, Deputy Minister is here. You're welcome, Deputy Minister, and those who are accompanying, they are here, they are listening, to consolidate through the embassies the scholarships and bursaries that are offered by all countries, so that we consolidate them. Then we know in the 116 missions that we work with globally, how many are offering scholarships of what type to South Africa. Then we can see how we work together to make sure that we use this opportunity to advance the cause of skills development and intellectual development in our country. That was very helpful, I must say. We are working with COCTA. So this matter that relates to the erosion of some of the powers of traditional leadership on the ground, we will discuss them with COCTA. It's not only the erosion of the powers, Honorable Mkiva. One of the things that we must discuss seriously with COCTA, yourselves and ourselves, is the respect to the institutions of traditional leadership in our country. I don't know why people so quickly and easily embrace Western value systems, and they embrace them far more better than our traditional African-based value system. So I think one of the things we have to do is education around that particular matter. Lastly, you may, as CONTRALESA, that's just my view, start a debate in South Africa as to whether it may have not been an omission in 1994 and just before 1994 during the negotiations at CODESA, whether when we do the review of 30 years, whether the time has not come to correct that omission where there was sort of a dilution of the role of traditional leadership. Because before the colonizers came to this country, people who were running the governance systems here in the country were mainly traditional leaders. So one of the proposals you may want to look at from a research point of view is as to whether we must not amend the constitution and have traditional leadership as the fourth arm of the state. And if we have it as the fourth arm of the state, what role will it play? What form will it take? What will be its powers? And so on. Strangely, the people who colonized us, the British, their parliament there can't do anything without the Queen or the King. I mean, yesterday or a day before yesterday, the King there was addressing Parliament. It's something that is more or less equivalent to the State of the Nation address. It's part of the infested system within the British way of governance. So it's strange because these are the people who colonized us, and when they came here, then they diluted it and taught us how to dilute it further as Africans. So I'm just saying, I'm just thinking aloud that at your own time, on your own as CONTRALESA, you may want to say, yes, we celebrate 30 years, whether the time has not come to introduce a debate that may result in us having the fourth arm of the state, which is not elected, because you are there permanently as traditional leaders. Even the judges, Chief Justice from time to time is changed, appointed by the president and so on. The parliament is elected by the people. The executive is a product of political election process. You are the only institution which cannot be changed by anybody. So for me, that debate, some of us will be ready and energetic to participate in it as to whether we shouldn't have traditional leadership as the fourth arm of the state. But thank you very much also for saying you support the idea which we are going to implement on the ground as the portfolio committee on international relations. Any concluding remarks, then we can move to our next item after releasing you, Ndadem Kiva.
Chairperson, I see that there was a hand. Maybe that hand will come after I have. No, I think your proposal is actually in line.
It's Honorable Faber. We'll come to you, Honorable Faber.
Yeah, so I was saying, Chair, maybe my colleagues might want also to say something.
Yes, it's up to you. It's up to you. It's up to you, Honorable.
Yeah. So I'm saying the issue of the fourth arm or the fourth tier, it's something that we have thought about, and it's an issue that is an ongoing thing that we are applying ourselves to it, and we are trying to develop a paper around it, as you put it right. We are researching it, but of course we agree on the point that it was a serious omission. So we are happy that we have an alignment there. Yeah, so at a right time, we will issue that paper for public comment in the public discourse, so that we can get other views from other people in order to enrich our own position. But we are of the view that it is something that should have happened at that point. That is why when we were in the negotiations, we're not in favor of calling a country a republic, because it was more so like you are simply inheriting from the colonialists an instrument of republicanism, and yet you are not 100% a republic per se. As I said, if we are a republic of a special type, simply because we've got that unique position of having kings that play a role in terms of the development of the community. And as you know, we are a country that is predominantly rural, like the rest of the African continent. And our kings are in charge of communal areas which are located in these rural areas anyway. And to us, it should not be a curse, but the beautiful landscape and the wonderful plateau that we have must help us. When we plan knowing our landscape, and not plan and put that landscape out of sight. And yet it is glaring that this country is half rural and half urban. So I'm saying that you are again hitting a nail right on its head there. But I think, Comrade Supra and honorable members of this committee, please do give a chance to my leaders. They might have a view. Perhaps you can make an indication by saying that if they do want to say something, they can raise their hand before you release us.
Yes, no problem. We are at that stage. Just before we give them that opportunity, Honorable Faber.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I would just would like to correct Mr. Makiva. And this is to me very, very important because I hear it a lot. Now, Chair, you see this book, and I want to show it to everyone here. This book here, it's called, well, now I don't seem to get it on, but it's a constitution. And this constitution says to us very clearly, this book I got in 2009 when I came to Parliament. And in the preamble, it says it yields the vision of the past and establish a socially based on democracy values, social justice and fundamental human rights, lay the foundations of a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equal, protected by law, improve the quality of life of all citizens and the free potential of each person and built a united and democratic South Africa, able to take its rightful place in a state in familiarized nations. And it says there that we believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Unity in our diversity. So to say it only belongs to certain people, Chairperson, then you don't believe in this book, which Nelson Mandela and a lot of leaders worked on and gave their lives for. So, Chairperson, please, can we just then correct that? Thanks, Chair.
Okay, when the colleagues who are accompanying Honorable Mkiva are done in their comments, if there's any, I'm sure that Mkiva can clarify that part. I didn't hear him, maybe I was not focusing enough. I didn't hear him saying there are some people who don't belong to this country. But if there are colleagues who are accompanying that Mkiva want to say something, our traditional leadership, this is now your opportunity.
Thank you, Chairperson. This is Malikan from Limpopo speaking, a member of the NW because my colleague. Do I have your permission to speak?
Yes, proceed, Khoshi. Create a place where your network might be better. But proceed.
Well, thank you very much. I've been trying this morning, I've been coming in and out. My area, I get it very, very bad. Thank you, Chairperson, for yourself and the members of the committee. Say that again. I was saying thank you very much for the opportunity to you and the committee. I think, Chair, my Secretary General, has almost made that. Jesus, very bad once again. I think maybe, can you hear me now? It's very bad. Very, very bad. Thank you very much.
Yes, proceed. You are very clear.
I think let's support what Mukiva has proposed for the meeting for all. I was saying maybe just to cut the long story short, we are in support of what Ndati Mukiva has said, a proposal for a meeting of all the structures of the CONTRALESA within a very short space of time. I think that is all I wanted to say. We are all behind him what he said this morning. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, Ndati Mukiva, you can make your closing remarks and clarify what Honorable Fava. I think he didn't hear you properly, but you can respond to him.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. No, it was almost a distortion of what I had said. Look, the descendants of Europe who are citizens of South Africa are part of this country. But that does not negate that the natives, the aborigines of Africa here, are the owners of this land. Similarly, we have got Africans who are citizens of Britain. But the British are the natives of Britain. They are the owners of that land. But that does not take away the right of the citizens of Britain. So the Constitution exists for us, and we do not necessarily exist for the Constitution. So that's why, for instance, we say we can always amend it at any time. We see a Constitution as a living document, and we respect it because it is a product of our own making and doing. So please, Mr. Willem Faber, you are pretty much part of the South African experience. Even though your forefathers came from Europe, you are part of us here now. Thank you very much, Comrade Supra. We will be looking forward to future engagements. Thank you for this opportunity, and we welcome this progressive initiative. Thank you.
Honorable Mkiva, thank you very much. Your capacity as Secretary General of CONTRALESA, leadership of the traditional system of our governance in the country, that we will work with them. Where we make mistakes, we will correct. But I think going forward, we must make a quantum leap in as far as more aggressive involvement of traditional leadership in our governance system is concerned. We can only solidify that so that future generations can inherit from us an initiative that seeks to strengthen this bringing to where they are in the country. So thank you very much for respecting coming to our meeting in the qualitative input. Siyabonga, siyabulela bayadangi. Our next item is on G20. Honorable voters, you can do a succinct summary of the G20 agenda. We have the apology of the minister, it's understandable. Yes, over to you.
Yes, good morning, Chairman.
You have muted yourself. Honorable voters.
Okay. Yes, am I audible, Chair?
Oh, now you are audible. Yes.
Okay.
You muted yourself.
Yes. No, thank you very much, Chair. The DG, will obviously lead the presentation. He'll be supported by Messenger Lahir. I must maybe just also indicate, Chair, that the DG will, after the presentation, he has been obligated to attend to an important matter of the fourth estate. Maybe I must start, Chair, by just welcoming the debate on the ministerial statement yesterday and congratulate you as the PC Chair, in particular for the strong perspective on solidarity that you have put forward. Chairperson, we are presenting the outcomes of G20 New Delhi Summit, which was convened over 9 to 10th of September 2023. I think members will appreciate the centrality of us at all times deepening the transformation agenda of global governance institutions, and obviously to ensure that as we deepen multilateralism, South Africa, and her views are fortified in regards to those events. We were fortunate, Chair, that President Ramaphosa led the South African delegation in the form of a working visit, and it was supported by the minister and a number of senior officials. We, through our president, has been allocated 2 speaking slots in the main plenary of the summit on 9th of September. The first session, Chair, or that we spoke on was on the thematic approach as it relates to One Africa, One Earth, and the discussions under One Earth were centered on issues such as preservation of the planet, including green and sustainable development, environment and climate, sustainable lifestyles, energy transitions, and global net zero. The second speaking slot, Chair, was under working session 2, One Family, and discussions were centered on issues of inclusive growth, the G20 response towards a strong, sustainable, balanced and inclusive growth, progress on the SDGs, health, education, gender equality, and the empowerment of all women and girls. I must indicate at this point, Honorable Chair and members, one of the key outcomes of the New Delhi Summit was the admission of the AU as a member of the G20. And it is our submission that this will allow the AU to take part in and influence global deliberations, in particular on international economic coordination. The G20 Summit, honorable members, concluded with the successful adoption of the New Delhi Declaration. India has focused its 2023 G20 presidency on development and highlighted the aspirations of the countries of the South. The declaration, therefore, Chair, calls for G20 leaders to act together to enhance efforts aimed at the acceleration of the SDG goals. It further pledges support for increased financing and welcomed the SDG stimulus package as proposed by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. South Africa, honorable members, considers the G20 as a critical vehicle to advance, developing countries' development priorities, with a particular emphasis on Africa's development paradigm. And it is our view that as a premier forum for international economic cooperation, the G20 is a key catalyst for the achievement of Agenda 2030 for sustainable development and also the Addis Ababa Action Agenda. It is our submission, Chair, that the G20 remains sensitive substantively to the needs of the developing economies of, in particular, Africa and of the global South, which under the stewardship and the presidency of India has adequately been demonstrated. We seek to do the same, Chair, when South Africa are geared to host the G20 for the very first time on African soil in 2025, 5 years before the 2030 SDGs goals ordinarily would have been reached. We wish to submit, as I conclude, Chair, that we will utilize the G20 Summit on African soil as a momentous occasion for our country and the rest of the continent. And in this regard, it presents us an ideal platform to champion the aspirations of emerging markets, economies, and lead the development agenda of the African continent within the framework of the G20. I must indicate, Chair, processes are underway to identify South Africa's priorities for its G20 presidency, which would obviously have a very strong Pan-African outlook. And I have indicated that the DJ has been appointed as the Sherpa of G20, and the show Sherpa is Ambassador Contralesa Mabongo, who is the DDG for Global Governance and Continental Agenda. In that regard, Chair, I, with your express permission, would want to invite the DG to complement this preface introduction from my side. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Bottas. Thanks very much. DG, you can take over.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Deputy Minister Bottas. Honorable Chair, the introductory remarks by Deputy Bottas actually provided a very detailed summary of the Leadership Summit that took place. I just want to highlight a few things that I think is important for the committee to engage with. The theme for India, which is the One Earth, One Family, is essentially two themes that have been brought together. And India chose that theme deliberately because it provides the nexus between sustainable development and also climate change seen through a just transition lens. And the Deputy Minister has adequately and did outline that. So I think it's important to outline that because Brazil is the next chair and Brazil is going to be looking at taking the lead from where India left off. So India focused on sustainable development and how it relates to climate change and a just transition issue, because it also then takes care of the concerns of developing countries. Brazil will focus on inequality as the main theme of their chairship of the G20. They haven't detailed yet what that would mean, but I do think it will sort of bring again the development agenda that India started into the G20 discussions for this coming session of the G20. And as the chair, as the deputy minister pointed out, when South Africa takes over the chair the year after that, we may want to build on what India and Brazil has started in terms of our own agendas, but also to look at how the G20 then engages with some of the issues that's of importance to the SADC and African region. But we will then deepen the discussions that have taken place on development and inequality. Just coming back to the outcomes. So the addition of the African Union was a proposal that emerged from President Ramaphosa and supported by the AU. And it's important that South Africa is a leading member of the G20. At the moment, it's the only African country that's a member of the G20. The AU will now play a more prominent role, not as an observer, but as a full member. And we think that strengthens the African agenda at the G20. We will still be looking at the modalities of how that works. Is it going to be the commission that represents the AU, or is it going to be the rotating chair? But that is something that will still be discussed between ourselves and the African Union. But it's important that the African agenda is strengthened. Remember, the G20 currently also has the EU as a standing member, together with individual EU countries. So it strengthens the role of Africa and developing countries. Chair, this particular outcome document was at the Leaders Summit. The Leaders Summit was a consensus document. If you recall that the previous documents were not consensus-based, it was chair's text. So the last summit was in Indonesia. So it was the chair of Indonesia presenting a text, and some countries putting footnotes to disassociate themselves from certain elements of the outcome document. The major point of disagreement was the handling of peace and security matters. So there has been, all the ministerials leading up to the Leaders Summit had no outcome documents because there's no consensus on how to deal with the issues around peace and security, particularly as it dealt with the war in Ukraine. And that changed with the Delhi Summit. The Delhi Summit was a consensus document. There was agreement on peace and security matters and the development issues that the deputy minister pointed out. The geopolitical component was broadened beyond just Russia and Ukraine, but took a more general approach without detracting from the Russia-Ukraine war on the role of the Charter, the important role of the UN Charter in ensuring that international law is applied in that conflict, but also uniformly to all other conflicts. So South Africa, Brazil, and India led the negotiations on that. And the important language that was introduced, aside from the Charter, was the very important idea that no land can be annexed or acquired through the use of force. And that became the kind of approach that brought together all countries to agree, which includes countries from Asia, Russia, China, and the G7 countries, who then agreed on a consensus basis. So there was a consensus approach to this outcome, with South Africa together with India and Brazil playing a leading role in driving that consensus document. So, Chair, I'm not going to go through all the slides because I think that the summary has dealt with all the key issues. The slides are there. I just want to talk more about the process going forward. So the South Africa, as the chair after Brazil, now forms part of the Troika. So the Troika for the G20 is essentially IPSA this year. starting in December, when the first Sherpa meeting takes place in Brazil. The new Troika will be installed, and that will be Brazil as the chair, the past chair being India, and the incoming chair being South Africa. And this will then allow us to, as IPSA, assist Brazil in deepening the agenda that's going to look at sustainable development, the concerns of the developing countries, inclusive growth, and inequality. Chair, I'm going to stop there, and hopefully we can then engage with the details in question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. Thanks very much. Members, this is just a briefing, but do we have anybody who wants to either make a comment, or if you are confused by something, then that confusion can be cleared by the department? I think it's quite straightforward. Okay, thanks very much, honorable members. It's quite clear. Just before we close the meeting, Honorable Boetes, I'm sure you have listened to our traditional leaders, so those issues, just make sure that you take them up. The DG is here. The issues they have raised, that I think that you can attend to. If you can also, in the social media, Honorable Boetes, there's something that has been doing the rounds since yesterday night around, I don't know whether this is true or not, the sale of arms to Israel by South Africa. I don't know whether it's arms and ammunition, but just confirm it so that as a department, we don't have to call you to the committee and say you must clarify that particular matter. If indeed it's happening, it can be explained in terms of the protocols that will have been agreed to. Maybe at a time when South Africa entered into that agreement, the situation was not as it is now. I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I'm sure you can get the information and clarify this matter at a public level. To us, you can just write a small letter, which we can then distribute to members of the committee. Otherwise, I want to thank you as the department, our staff, honorable members, for the participation in this meeting. Enjoy your day. Let's prepare for the sitting this afternoon. Hambani kahle. Go well. Bye, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bonga mina, bonga mina.
Thank you, Chief.
Sonke siyabonga. Awubonga thina sonke ngikuzwa kahle. Oh, ngiyabonga Mama Zulu.
Yebo.
Bonga kakhulu, hambani kahle, siyabonga.
Usiphathe ngobubele sihlalo.
Owena ovula indlela. Owena ovula indlela wayishaya bayincancaze ngobathathu.
Ngobathathu. Hey, sithi menzima kabi. Hey.
Kabi.
Hayi siyabonga Mamzungu.
Thank you.